Story number 1. We were 6 when we went up the ridge. Myself, Cody, Laura, Vince, Jess, and Travis. All in our 20s, freshly free from college, desperate to taste something real again. Nature was supposed to cleanse the digital rot out of us. So we drove 3 hours up into the mountain range and hiked another 2 to reach an old, unofficial campsite Cody's older brother once visited in high school. A spot with no cell signal, no paved roads, and no surveillance. Started well. Better than well. Campfire, stories, drinks, laughter echoing through the trees. The sky stretched like black velvet above us, 1,000 stars staring back, and the lake beside us sat smooth and glassy, until the fire went out. Not died down, not sputtered, just out. Instant darkness. Jess shrieked. Travis swore. We scrambled for flashlights, but each one blinked and died within seconds. Phones too. Even the ones on full charge. Every screen, dead. Every battery drained. We used Cody's lighter to get the fire going again. Took time, more effort than usual, but eventually the flames returned. That's when we noticed it. A figure just beyond the tree line. Standing still. No movement. No light catching its eyes. Just there, motionless. We stared. And then it stepped back, vanishing behind a pine. Cody shouted out. No response. We thought maybe it was another hiker. Maybe. But no one else knew about this site. We hadn't passed a single soul for miles. Vince grabbed a flashlight, even though it didn't work, and said, "I'm gonna check it out." He left, and he didn't come back. 10 minutes, then 20, then an hour. We shouted for him, screamed. Nothing. We debated whether to go after him, but no one wanted to enter the woods. Jess was already crying. Laura had thrown up. Travis tried to act brave, but he couldn't stop his hands from shaking. We stayed close to the fire, feeding it constantly. Every time it dimmed even a little, the forest grew louder, like whispers just outside our hearing. Then we saw Vince again. He walked into the clearing, alone. But his shirt was soaked from the collar to the hem. Not water, not rain, blood. He didn't speak, just stood there, head slightly tilted, lips parted. Cody stepped forward. "Dude, what the hell?" Vince lunged, tackled Cody to the ground. We screamed, Jess grabbing a stick from the fire and swinging wildly. Laura and I pulled Cody back, who had a bite on his shoulder. Deep and wide, like Vince had tried to rip his flesh off. But Vince wasn't right. His eyes weren't focusing. His mouth trembled, leaking blood and spittle. Then he convulsed, dropped like a puppet with cut strings. We circled around him, but his body was already turning cold. That's when we heard multiple voices in the woods. All of them sounded like Vince, mimicking him, laughing, whispering, screaming his last words on repeat. I just wanted to see. We couldn't move. Every direction we turned, we saw shadows between the trees. Some hunched, some crawling, some hanging from branches above. We fed the fire until the wood ran out. Then it started dimming again, and the forest grew louder. Travis finally snapped, grabbed the axe and took off toward the trees, yelling at whatever was watching us. His screams didn't last long. But his voice didn't go silent either. Came back, from all around us, repeating phrases he said earlier that day, about wanting to get away, wanting silence. By sunrise, there were only 3 of us. We tried to hike down, but the trails were gone. Literally. The dirt path we used to climb up had been replaced by solid, unbroken forest floor. No footprints, no rocks disturbed, no sign of human travel. The compass spun uselessly. We decided to head toward the lake. But the lake was wrong now. It stretched further, wider, and in the middle, just barely visible above the surface, were tents. Half submerged, mold-covered, torn, ours, from last night. But we had left the tents behind us, near the fire pit. Not by the water. Laura refused to look. She shut her eyes and mumbled prayers. Then she opened them and said, "Where's Jess?" We turned. Jess was gone. We looked for her all day, only to find her shoes, at the edge of the water, toes pointed inward, and near them footprints, but only one set, leading out into the lake. Not in. We returned to the fire pit, only to find the ashes were fresh, still warm, even though the fire had gone out hours ago. And then Jess walked into the clearing, smiling, eyes bleeding. She said nothing, just stepped into the fire pit and sat in it. No pain, no sound. She burned, but the fire stayed out. Laura collapsed screaming. I tried to pull her away, but she fought me, tearing her nails into her own skin, screaming about mirrors in the trees, and our faces not being ours anymore. I ran. I don't know how long I ran. Hours? Days? Eventually, I stumbled into a ranger station, collapsed on the floor, dehydrated, covered in scratches and blood that wasn't mine. They said I'd been gone for 11 days. I was found 40 miles from where the camp should have been. But when they returned to investigate, the site didn't exist. No clearing, no ridge, no lake, no fire pit, just unbroken forest. I've been in therapy since. Doctors call it trauma-induced psychosis. But every time I close my eyes, I hear the fire crackling again. And the voices, repeating that same phrase, I just wanted to see. And sometimes when I wake up at night, I smell smoke. Story number 2. The first time the wind stopped, I noticed the silence. We were deep in the Wexler National Forest, far beyond the common trailheads. It was supposed to be a disconnect weekend. Me, my cousin Andy, his girlfriend Mel, our friend Parker, and this quiet guy named Jace who barely spoke unless spoken to. Andy had found the place through some obscure hiking forum, an old firewatch clearing that hadn't been used since the 80s. Untouched wilderness, the post said. Isolated. Peaceful. We didn't know the original poster had been missing for 3 years. The first night was uneventful. We pitched tents, cooked canned stew, drank, and laughed under the stars. Coyotes howled in the distance, and the breeze was constant. Cool air weaving through pine trees, brushing our cheeks and noses like nature's lullaby. Then came night 2. We'd just finished a round of ghost stories when the wind simply stopped. Completely. No rustling leaves. No chirps. Not even insects. Like the entire forest was holding its breath. It made our ears ring, that kind of unnatural silence. Jace was the first to speak. This is when they start watching. We laughed it off. Typical Jace, cryptic and weird. But I noticed how pale he looked, how tightly he clutched the compass around his neck. I didn't sleep well that night. I woke to a snapping twig sound and sat upright in the tent. The silence was still there. No wind. Just nothing. Then I heard it. A soft clicking like stones tapping together. Came from just outside. Click, click, click. Then silence. Then from the other side of the tent. Click. I peeked out with my flashlight, but the beam hit only trees and mist. The next morning, I asked if anyone else heard it. Only Jace nodded. They test the sound first, he said. Then they test the people. We hiked during the day to explore a stream on the map. The place felt older than anything I'd seen. Trees like crooked bones, moss covering everything like skin. Parker joked that it looked like a place God forgot to finish painting. That's when we found the circle. A ring of stones, perfectly symmetrical, about 20 feet across, nestled between the roots of several ancient trees. At its center, a stone totem, almost human-shaped but wrong, limbs too long, head too narrow, symbols carved across its chest in a language none of us recognized. Mel wanted a picture. Jace told her not to. Don't take pieces from places that don't belong to us. That night, Mel disappeared. No screaming, no struggle, just gone. Her boots were still by the tent flap. Phone in her sleeping bag. No signs of a break-in. We searched the woods until morning. No trail, no signs, until we returned to the circle. The totem was facing us now. It hadn't been before. Jace dropped to his knees and whispered, "They've marked her." We thought he was losing it, until we saw the second totem, standing across the circle from the first, shorter, with long hair carved into the back. It looked like Mel. Andy broke. He tried to smash the totems. As soon as he raised the axe, the wind came rushing back, howling so violently it knocked him backward into a tree. He lay there, still, bleeding from the ears. We carried him back to camp. He woke around noon, eyes bloodshot, whispering things we couldn't understand. Not language, rhythms. Clicking rhythms. By nightfall, the wind died again. Jace sat by the fire, holding his compass, which spun slowly. He told us the forest wasn't haunted, it was guarded, protected by something older than time. He said if the wind stops, you stay put. If you speak, they find you. If you shine light into the trees, they mimic what they see. We didn't believe him, until Parker turned on his flashlight and aimed it at the trees. That's when we saw them. Just shapes at first. Dozens of them. Long arms. Crooked bodies. No eyes. Only mouths. Long, thin, and stretching from ear to ear. When the light hit them, they didn't scatter. They copied it. Hundreds of beams blinked back at us. Like the forest was suddenly full of flashlight eyes. We ran. Blindly. Without our gear. Without a plan. The silence chased us. The further we ran, the more the forest looped. We passed the same crooked log 5 times. Heard Andy's voice calling out from 5 different directions. Even though he lay back at camp, barely breathing. Parker tripped and vanished into the underbrush. We screamed for him, but his voice answered from the wrong place. Too far. Too soon. Mimicked. Jace stopped running. This is the edge, he said. There was nothing ahead of us but a drop. A cliff that ended in mist and darkness. We were surrounded. Clicking sounds. Low whispers. Rhythms. Then, from the mist, Mel's voice. Calling out. Then Parker's. Then Andy's. Then mine. Every voice I'd ever had. Coming from the dark. Jace looked at me and said, "Only way out is to forget the way back." And he stepped over the edge. Gone. No scream. No thud. Just gone. I didn't follow. I turned. I ran back to camp. Alone. When I arrived, Andy was dead. Eyes hollow. Mouth frozen in a silent scream. There was a new totem in the fire pit. Wearing his hoodie, I hiked out the next morning, following the sun. Took 2 days. I shouldn't have made it. Search and rescue found me dehydrated. Delirious. I kept whispering numbers. Rhythms. They tested me. Said I'd had a mental breakdown. But every night since, I hear the wind stop, even inside my apartment. And sometimes, when I open the window, I hear a familiar clicking sound just outside. And the breeze never comes back. Story number 3. It was supposed to be our tradition. Every year, same month. October, right before Halloween, the 5 of us would pack up our gear and head into the woods for a weekend of camping. No phones, no internet, no distractions. Just us, Eli, Marcus, Danny, Lyle, and me. This year, Marcus picked the site. Some obscure spot listed on an old geocaching forum. Site 17 Whisper Pines. No coordinates. Just directions like, turn left after the mile marker 13, follow the river upstream, and when the trees start leaning in, you'll know you're close. It sounded perfect. That first night, we made it just before dark. The air was still, too still, and the trees, tall and blackened with age, seemed to lean toward each other at unnatural angles. But the clearing was flat, and the river nearby gave off a soothing sound. We set up tents, lit the fire, and started cooking. Everything felt fine. Until Danny asked, "Anyone hear that?" We all paused. "Like whispering?" she said. I didn't hear it at first. But then, on the edge of the firelight, there it was. A soft, low murmur. Not words. Just sound. Faint like the wind trying to speak. Marcus laughed. Must be the river. But the river was downstream. And the sound, it was coming from uphill. We ignored it. Told ourselves it was just the woods. The trees. Wind. We were wrong. Later that night, Eli woke me up. "Dude," he whispered. "Someone's walking around our tents." I sat up. We stayed silent, listening. Crunch. Slow, deliberate footsteps circling the camp. We peeked out of the tent flap. No one there. No footprints in the dirt. But the whispering had returned, closer now, surrounding us. We woke the others. Shined lights into the woods. Nothing. We tried to laugh it off again, blaming the wind or animals. That morning, things got worse. Lyle's tent was empty. His sleeping bag was still zipped, boots by the flap, his pack untouched. We spread out to look, followed the only trail we could find. Small footprints in the mud leading uphill, toward a strange tree line where the pines began to twist unnaturally. We found his flashlight halfway up the trail, still on. Then a piece of his hoodie, hanging from a low branch like it had been placed there. Eli didn't want to go further. Marcus didn't care. He ran ahead. We found the whisper tree by accident. At the top of the hill, beyond a tight pass of crooked trunks, was a tree unlike any I've ever seen. Black bark, limbs like spines, and symbols carved into every inch. Surrounding it in a perfect circle were dozens of shoes, backpacks, even tents, all rotting, some with tags still attached. Most were children's sizes. In the center of the roots, half-buried, was a human skull. We froze. Danny started to cry. Then we heard the voice. Not a whisper. A voice. Clear. Familiar. Lyle? He stepped out from behind the whisper tree, barefoot, dirty, eyes wide and empty. He smiled too wide. Danny, you came. We all backed up. Lyle, man, are you okay? He tilted his head. The tree talks now. Marcus pulled Danny behind him. What the hell is going on? He demanded. Lyle blinked slowly. They don't want us to leave. Then the whispering surged. Louder. Furious. From all around. Trees groaning. Leaves thrashing, though there was no wind. And something stepped from the shadows behind Lyle. It wore skin like leather, no face, just a slit where a mouth should be. And it whispered, not with a voice, but inside our minds. Stay. We ran. Ran until my legs screamed and lungs bled. We didn't stop until we were back at the river, back at camp. But everything was wrong. The tents were torn. Our fire was still burning, even though we doused it that morning. And the sun, it hadn't moved, still sitting just behind the treetops like it had been stuck there for hours. Time was stuck. Danny collapsed, sobbing. Eli threw his pack together and sprinted toward the trail we came in on. We never saw him again. Marcus and I tried to find a signal, climb trees, scream for help. Nothing worked. That night, Danny vanished. Just gone. Her sleeping bag still zipped. The last night, Marcus cracked. He walked up the hill with a knife. Said he was going to burn the whisper tree. Said he was going to end it. He never came back. I stayed up until the sky broke and dawn finally came. I hiked. For hours. Days. No food. No gear. Just fear. When I finally stumbled out near an old ranger station, I tried to explain. They didn't believe me. Said that area of the forest hadn't been accessible for years. Fires. Mudslides. No official trails. They said Whisper Pines doesn't exist anymore. But I still hear them. Every October. Every night at 3:17 a.m., the time Lyle vanished. The whispers come through my windows. And I dream of a black tree, surrounded by shoes and bones, whispering my name. Story number 4. We thought we were clever. Camping off-grid where no ranger maps led. Somewhere between Iron Hollow and Pike's Edge. Deep in forestland most people didn't even know was accessible. Josh had found it through an old Reddit thread where some guy swore there was a forgotten trail leading to a place called Lantern Hollow. Not on maps, he said. Old miners' camp. Abandoned. Super quiet. Just you, trees, and ghosts of the mountain. We should have paid more attention to that last part. It was me, Josh, his sister Kelsey, our friend Damien, and Bree, the new girl Josh had started seeing. We were all in our early 20s, eager for something new and thrilling. We hiked half a day before we found it. The entrance was barely visible. A narrow path hidden behind an overgrowth of thorny brush, marked by a rusted pickaxe jammed into a split boulder. That should have been our warning. But we stepped through, into a hollow nestled in a bowl of sheer cliffs and crooked pine trees that looked like they'd grown by accident. And the lanterns were still there. Dozens of them. Old mining lanterns hung from poles, trees, nails driven into stumps. Most were rusted through, barely hanging on. But as the sun set, something strange happened. They started to glow. At first, we thought someone had been out there, some weird forest art project or maybe solar lanterns. But the glow wasn't warm or yellow. It was this pale blue like cold fire. No power source. No wires. Just light blooming to life as if the forest had decided it needed to see us. Bree was fascinated. She took pictures, videos, even tried to touch one, until Josh pulled her hand away. "You don't touch things left behind," he said. He always had a weird sixth sense. The kind you don't talk about in daylight. We set up tents in the center of the hollow near a large stone slab, probably used for mining gear back in the day. The air was still. No animals. Not even bugs. That night, we sat by the fire and watched as the blue lanterns flickered softly all around us. Until, one by one, they started going out. At random, like something was moving through them. Like something was walking closer. Then Damien saw it first. At the far edge of the camp, near the largest tree, one lantern flickered so violently it almost exploded. And standing beneath it, just barely visible, was a man. Or something like one. Tall, thin, wrapped in something dark. His face was a blur, like smoke that couldn't settle. We shouted. The figure didn't move. Then Bree stepped forward. She said her name, asked if he was okay. That's when the whispers started. Low and dry, like sandpaper sliding across old wood. All around us. But the man? Still, watching. Then the lantern near him burst. And he vanished. We didn't sleep. Josh stood watch with the hatchet. Kelsey cried silently most of the night. The lanterns kept flickering, off and on in patterns like signals. By morning, everything felt wrong. The air was thick. The trees looked closer. The cliffs now steeper. And Bree was missing. Her boots and pack still by her tent. A single lantern sat burning at the entrance of her tent, in broad daylight. That's when we decided to leave. We packed what we could and hiked back toward the trailhead. Except it wasn't there. Just more trees, more cliffs, and the forest. It was looping. Every turn brought us back to the hollow. Every attempt to climb led us to the same boulder with the pickaxe. Until we found the second slab of stone. One we hadn't seen before. This one had names carved into it. Deep gashes like from a chisel. Dozens of names. Some recent. And at the bottom, freshly scratched, Brianna Keller. Josh screamed her name until his throat bled. Then one of the lanterns lit by itself. Far down a slope we hadn't walked before. We followed it. Then another lit. And another, forming a path. Kelsey begged us not to go. Said it was leading us deeper. But Josh was already running, screaming for Bree. We followed him. And found the miner's shaft. A gaping black hole in the earth. Roped off with frayed wire and a rusted sign. Do not disturb what was sealed below. The lanterns circled the shaft. Still glowing. Josh climbed down. We waited. For hours. He didn't come back. When we called, his voice echoed, but not in reply. It repeated what we'd said. Exactly. With our voices. Something down there was listening. We dragged Kelsey away. Forced her to run. We camped outside the hollow that night, far from the boulder. And still, in the dark, we saw the lanterns burning. All of them. No power. No people. Just cold blue fire in the trees. And shadows beneath them. By dawn, the path had returned. We didn't speak all the way back. We told the rangers. They searched. Said there's no place called Lantern Hollow. No records of mining there. No paths past Iron Hollow registered. We gave them GPS coordinates. They came back and said there was nothing but dense forest and dead ends. But 2 weeks later I got a letter. Handwritten. No stamp. Inside was a single photo. Of Bree. Standing in front of the whisper tree from a story I'd never told anyone. Her eyes were glowing blue. And behind her, a lantern burned.